Hello, everybody. Tom O'Connor. Welcome back to the eDiscovery channel. I'm coming to you as always from New Orleans, Louisiana, and Rocky still in Tel Aviv.
I am. Who
All
knows
right.
by the time this gets released? Maybe not, but
Right.
we'll see.
Right. Okay. Any movement on the government front? Have you become elected the
We have a government here.
compromise candidate for the PM yet? Or
we have a government. They may destroy the judiciary, but we have a government. So
Well,
I mean,
Well,
they
why-
will destroy the judiciary. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
why should
man.
they be any different? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a may in that one. I mean,
yeah.
And our guest today, we are very happy to welcome Daniel Garrie. Did I pronounce that right, Daniel?
yes, you sure did.
All right. Dan is the co-founder of Law Forensics LLC, has about 20 qualifications after his name. He's got degrees in computer science. He's got a law degree. He's a forensics expert. He's a cybersecurity expert. He's a breathman. He's he's like just about everything. He's a special master. He's a testifying expert, right? You teach a class at Harvard. Harvard, as Rocky probably knows, Harvard holds a special spot in my heart because I received a very specialized course of education at Harvard one summer.
Yes, he did.
Yes,
I
shortly after a Led Zeppelin concert. Yeah, this
It's
is
probably tremendous.
back in this. It was very tremendous. We'll talk about it
A
later.
true liberal arts education was delivered.
Yes, indeed.
I'm
So,
got
Daniel,
education.
enough about me.
Oh.
I'll ask Rocky. What do you think about me? Daniel, so tell me, with all this in your background, I mean, first of all, you got a BA and an MA. If correct me if I'm wrong, in computer science, and then you decide to go to law school. I mean,
Well, that was after I paid lawyers a lot of money building some tech companies and selling them. So
Really?
law wasn't my first entree into. I didn't go to sleep at night many years ago thinking, oh, I want to be Perry Mason. I was actually, I mean, I got a degree in a master's in computer science, and I sold a company or two. And as we were paying the legal fees, I thought, and my grandfathers were both lawyers, in true credit to them. In Romania, my grandfather was actually a judge before Ceausescu took over. I don't know if you know a lot about what happened after he took over to the Jewish people, but we all left in quick fashion. Actually fled. My grandfather on my dad's side also was a trial lawyer in LA for many years before he passed. So,
okay.
I mean, there were lawyers. Nobody ever said, Daniel, you should be a lawyer. I was building, I actually had my master's in search using AI. Well, now AI is very sexy, Lisp and AI, and JScheme.
Machine learning.
Yeah, machine learning, all of these, je ne sais quoi of the day, but we built a machine learning AI. We built this, whatever. I built a search application using neural networks and AI and machine learning, and we I had a company which worked actually in cybersecurity and websites, and then I got my master's. I'm like, oh, I'll throw a search piece into there, and I then unloaded that, and then I went to a series of startups in Silicon Valley. They got all acquired in the first .com boom or bubble or whatever you want to call it. Very where you sat on the exit. And then from there, I ended up going to New Zealand or an online. Yeah, it was awesome. I was running mobile and internet banking for Westpac Trust Bank. I did a lot.
That?
Oh, in New Zealand, Wellington. Well, I was based out of Wellington, but I was responsible for, I don't know. Oh, 2000-ish, 2001, 2000,
okay.
Right? 2000, 2001-ish, right around then. After
I was part of a group of people that got invited over by the New Zealand Law Society back in
Judge David Harvey. He's a great dude.
back in the 90s. So this is the late 80s. The internet was just coming. I was really Gail, my late wife. I was really her caddy. She was the search person and a law librarian, and they had us down at Dunedin at the university.
Yeah, that's a great.
She set up a whole internet lab there because they could use their pipe to get out and do stuff. And it was really fascinating. Great country. I loved it. Well,
I
absolutely.
love New Zealand.
Yeah.
Daniel,
Yeah.
hold on. Let's back up a little bit. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Seattle.
You grew up in
Really?
Seattle.
Well, I was born in Salt Lake, grew up in Seattle, and then unlike the kids of today, my parents, I applied to college and then it was preordained, and off I went to Brandeis. I
So
studied-
did you go to high school in Seattle?
Yeah, I went, well, yes, I was had the privilege of attending school in Seattle.
Where'd you go to high school? Which, as you well know, every Seattle native, that's the most important question.
So I went to
Yeah.
University Prep. So I went to U Prep.
Okay. My wife was my late wife was a Redmond High graduate. And my son went to Bellevue High.
So
RC.
I was gonna go to Bellevue. My brother went to Newport, but
Yeah.
I went
Yeah.
my academic. I did not have the same. I am much more. I have matured in the years as I.
We
So
lived
I
right
had-
there. We lived in Newcastle, which was
Oh, yeah, of course.
just above.
Forest Ridge.
Yeah. We loved it up there.
Yeah, so Forest Ridge was where my so I know exactly where that is. So
Oh,
yeah.
great. Cool. And then you went to Brandeis. You went all the way across the country
All the way
to college.
Yeah.
I sure did. Let me tell you, that was it was a great experience.
System.
Yeah, it was personal
Oh,
growth.
Boston, my other favorite city.
Boston was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Boston. Very fortunate. Made some, finished there. I had built a company, and then I went to Silicon Valley. I mean, I went. After we did that transaction, I went to Andale, which was where I learned about options and warrants and everything
Right.
else. And then it was .com boom, right? So I rode that. That was a quick opportunity there. So then from there I went to another startup that Sleep Solutions that ended up being acquired by J&J for sleep apnea, whatever. I don't remember, honestly. It's so long back. But anyways,
I was sleeping.
building.
Okay, so now we can jump back to New Zealand and
Well,
you're
then from
hanging-
there I went to New Zealand. So then from there I ended up interviewing with Westpac Trust Bank. So I worked in my first company. I had worked for the Department of Justice as a senior IT. I don't know what the title was. Bottom line is I ended up working at the DOJ, and that was many moons, when I was very young. But I got lucky, and all my colleagues and people I worked with became big kahunas, right? Mike Duffy became the CIO of the Department of Treasury. Linda became the head of Health and Human Services. Tom became Social Security. Jim became Copyright Office. And we delivered JCON, right? So I was one of the senior architects for the government, building and architecting Humpack at the time. I'm probably dating myself, but HP and Compaq, they made Humpack back then.
Yeah.
We took them from DOS to Windows and WordPerfect to Word. And so that was, I worked for the DOJ as an employee, not as an intern, but a full-time technologist, we'll say. It wasn't for my legal fortitude. That didn't come to later in life, let's say. They used me for my technical skills. I was a shared resource paid by the Department of Agriculture. But
Nice.
So when did you decide that you're actually going to go to law school? Is that
that's an interesting story. So after New Zealand, I went to Australia to another startup. So I ran mobile and internet banking at Westpac Trust for like a year and change, and it was incredible. And then I went to the Exogen Group for like 3 or 4 months to run Australasian operations. They were involved with some whatever. They had some colorful financing problems due to some other investors or whatever. So I decided that wasn't for me. I left. I came back to the United States. My sister was taking the GREs at the time. I said, I'll take the LSATs. So I took the LSATs. And then I'm like, Argentina, the currency collapsed, a year earlier. And I'm like, that looks like a pretty interesting. I don't mind. I'm not a risk averse person. So I bought an airplane ticket and I flew down to Buenos Aires. And I worked for a Siemens spinoff there, Click It Solutions. worked on my Spanish, I guess you could say, for 8 to 9 months. I got a call from the Department of Justice. So I worked for 3 different attorney generals. First was Reno, then Gonzalez. There was some technical issues at the DOJ. At the time, the FBI, the CIO, I don't remember his official title. Somebody lied to Congress about graduating from MIT, so they got booted. There was some, I don't know all the political details that happened, but the bottom line is they gave me a call. And like I mentioned before, my colleagues from when I worked for them in the 98, 99 season, I went back, they had gotten promoted, right? And so Mike Duffy, what I think it was deputy CIO of the DOJ. I don't know his official title. He was important, the bottom line is. Yep. And so I went back to work for the DOJ on some technical issues as a shared resource on these eGov initiatives, working with different people in the intelligence all over the place on some technical stuff. Then my mom got a letter in the mail saying I'd gotten a scholarship. I don't remember the exact wording. Bottom line is Rutgers Law School reached out to me and said, you're admitted and we're going to give you a scholarship. And,
okay.
Me being the, whatever, my mom's like, you should go to law school. I'm like, yeah, maybe, maybe not. I'm like, and then I thought about how much money we paid the lawyers. And then I thought, but anyways, Congressman, it turns out that Dean Andrews' husband at Rutgers Law School in Camden was Congressman Andrews. So I then ended up going to the Hill, verifying it was real. And then 3 days later, I rolled up to Rutgers Camden Law School. Never been to Camden in my life.
Wow.
And
why would you?
Yeah, well, that having been there for a day and a half, I agree with you fully. From there, and then from there, I launched a legal tech group. Little did I know legal tech group was going to be, again, I still think I own legaltechconference.com. I don't know. Anyway, I launched a company called Legal Tech in
Nice.
03 or 04 with a
We got to go up there and assert that claim. It's coming up in March. Hey, you guys owe me a lot of royalties.
No, that's why it's now Legal Week. They changed it. No longer legal.
Yeah,
I don't know. I should look. I don't know, but I know I still own the domain. I buy it on a 10-year basis, and but I own these things. Fast forward, I did law school, and then I worked. While I was in law school, I ended up founding another company called I can't remember. Legal Tech. No, never mind. It was Legal Tech Group. We founded Legal Tech Group with Seth Basker. And we went to law school. I wrote like 15 or 20 law review articles when I was in law school. It was real, like I wrote on.
What was the company doing? So it was called Legal Tech Group.
Oh, so we worked on eDiscovery in 03 and 04.
Okay.
That's when I met Ken Withers, right back in the day, right before he was still at the Federal Judicial Center. So anyways, Legal Tech Group, we did eDiscovery. HP had Xantaz and archiving. Well, actually, they hadn't acquired Xantaz yet. So anyways, they had archiving, all these huge record management solutions. And I actually partnered with somebody who was a master sale. I mean, he'd built and sold his own companies in his own right. He'd been extremely successful. He'd retired. I convinced him to come out of retirement. He helped me build Legal Tech Group. We then took Legal Tech Group, and I finished law school a little early. And so I finished a semester too early. From there, I ended up selling. Well, I originally was going to go to a law firm, but didn't work. I wasn't the exact. It wasn't.
It wasn't the best fit.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, I like the practice of law. I think, the right law firm can do amazing things for people and teach them how to become a lawyer. They can take baby lawyers and turn them into great lawyers. I was very lucky and fortunate. I had really good legal mentors and opportunities. So Legal Tech Group sold all its assets to Charles Rivers Associates. Selling to my partner. That was in 06, 07-ish. I think 06. Sold it to Charles. I became a director, Charles Rivers Associates. That's where I learned the expert business. I'm very, very blessed and lucky. Amazing people that are way smarter than I will ever be were teaching me and educating me, like Dr. David Babel, in IP and in patents and everything else. And then I got a phone call, and and when I did that transaction, I went to CRA. I had to go for a year, so I stayed my year. And then after that, I got again really lucky. I remember October 1 of 07, the market like 3 weeks later, the market collapsed. I unloaded everything I had because my year lockup finished. So boom, I was done with that. And I went to start a venture development group, which we ran for about 10 years, and we ended about 10 or 20, 50 companies in the portfolio. I don't know, a lot. I don't remember the exact number. That we did all right, enough to pay for like lunch in New York City, which was like $5, street food. Back then it was $5 or $6. It's gone up a lot. So I don't know if you consider it well today. And when I left Charles Rivers Associates, I had several clients and customers who were like, we really want you to continue with advanced eDiscovery, forensics, and cybersecurity work we were doing. So I set up FSRDG, which has become Law Forensics. We worked on really complicated technical issues around eDiscovery, consulting, law, and forensics, like going into Venezuela to get data off servers connected to the government that had to do with the mining right dispute, where we had to collect it forensically. There was no remote collection capabilities, and interesting things. I was very blessed. I had amazing mentors. Bill Sperno, who passed, who's no longer with us, was a fantastic mentor to me. Met a lot of really amazing lawyers that taught me the ropes. And then in 08, I got a call and they said, we'd like you to be a special master in this case called Colburn v. Dine.
Okay.
It turns out that was Skype.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Turns out that was a Skype partnership, and it involved something upwards of 50 law firms and like 65 different companies and really complicated eDiscovery matters. It was Pam Colburn versus Mark Dine, I think it was, in LA Superior Court. And there was Kevin Burmeister, who's now one of the luminaries in Jerusalem, actually does real estate. I mean, just everybody, it was an amazing opportunity, right? I got to see and learn from like some of the most brilliant lawyers you can, like Frank Petrie Crochet, or, Mike. I had really amazing lawyers appearing before me and great judges that were willing to mentor me and teach me the ropes.
I was going to say, as a special master, it can be daunting, going in the first time and not knowing necessarily what exactly.
It's more daunting when their children are older than you are. So
right.
my grandchildren, when they have grandchildren that are like in their 20s, right. It was very daunting. I was in my 20s still. Yeah, it was, but I like I said, I'm not a risk adverse player. I brought in some additional people to my consulting firm, and I took that special master gig, and I ended up writing a report that ended up settling not only that case, but all of the parallel actions everywhere. It turns out when you do that in the legal world in a way that's effective and demonstrates you're not, like, I got in the weeds, right? I'm doing like collections, imaging, analysis, mobile, all sorts of Macs, laptops, Blackberries, phones, pool systems.
Right.
Yeah, I went in and did it. Like, I understand it. I did it. Like, we went in and we recollected evidence. We recovered evidence. We worked in clean rooms. We did the work. Like, we connected the cables to the disk to get it to spin to take the David off, right? So, and then also I wrote the legal opinions, right? I wrote all of the legal opinions and the holdings and all of that stuff. And then, I kept running the venture development group. I was a partner there, Pulse Advisory. And in parallel with that, I ran this Law Forensics, which has become Law Forensics. We renamed it, AKA, or it's a DBA. It's actually FSRDG LLC. But or now it's a C Corp. I don't know. It's become professionalized with
it's real. It's real. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, we have CFO and COO and like all these people that do these functional business things that are far more capable than I am at certain things. And I did that for a decade. And then I was a special master in like a bunch of cases. I mean, you can Small versus UMC. That was another pretty interesting case that, you know, and then I was a testifying expert because what I came to appreciate, and I did forensics and cybersecurity as well, right? We've always been in all three of those spaces. And what I came to appreciate is that as a special master, sitting for a deposition gives you a whole different understanding of the amount of work and effort that goes into preparing a witness and doing productions. And like, you know, I find people don't have a true appreciation of, okay, it's 1 million documents, right? Well, okay, so you run it through a tar tool or relative, whatever you want. I don't care. Pick the flavor of the day. All right, run it through it, filter it down, then you have lawyers review it, and then the lawyers review it. Then the lawyers, after they review it, have a second pass review. Then they write a memo for the client. Then those documents are provided to the expert. Then the expert reviews the documents. Then the expert sits down to get deposed, right? So that's a lot of work for one deposition for that guy that's sitting there as a 30v6 expert to be deposed, right? And I find that a lot of people don't appreciate I'll give you a classic example. Craig Ball was in a case I was on the other side of. It was a crazy case. And getting past getting past the nuances of what happened and those things. One of the most interesting things to me was and I work for plaintiffs and defense. So my company works for both sides. We read the briefs, we look at the lawyers, we look at the facts, we look at the positions, and we decide, are we comfortable being involved? Once we make that determination, you know, we're not big on hosting and reviewing. That's not our thing. We can do it, but we don't want to do it ever. We try never to do that. But we look at all of that and we make a decision. But in that case, I took it and I was on the defense side. And I'll never forget the argument that was posed to the court. They said it's one click and boom, you can get the data out of the database. Now, remember, I've worked for Westpac, the DO, like huge enterprises, right? And it's this PDF insurance claim report, right? This is like the pretty PDF you get that says you had hail damage, whatever. So I go to my client, and I say, well, how many systems does it take to actually build this? I say about 80 to 90. I go, has anybody explained to them what AS400 is and like OS 390 is and what using MQ series means and like what all of this means? I go and explain to them the data model. The lawyers look at me like, what's he talking about? So I said, right, I get it. I mean, like, look, because sometimes I get excited and I'll go in the weeds. So I took a minute, go back. I go, like Amazon has one click. You click the button and boom, it shows up at your house. I go, Amazon spends billions of dollars to make that experience happen for you. Right. And I go, and there's systems and data and people and all of these complex supply chain issues, all of that, right? But you just click the button and boom, you get it.
Just one click, right?
I go, so now what you're basically asking for is effectively the same thing. You're asking Amazon's one click for all of the data that powers one click to just be provided to you so you can look at the native data. And I go, it's not a trivial process. I go, and then they understood it. So we go forward, and then we get this whole conversation about metadata. And it's still a conversation today. It's astounding to me. Like, now don't get me wrong, like an office file today is effectively like a mini database, right? You can deconstruct it, pull out elements and all of those things, right? But you have to really know what you're doing to even understand what I just said, right? I mean, like you're a litigator. You want to know what the word said, maybe the time it was sent, when it was received, who authored it, and how long were they looking at it. And maybe you need some GPS data because it has to do with some of these medical fraud billing cases. I was in this case once where we did the forensics. We're like, well, we see you flying across the country when you're billing for open heart surgery. And so they settled. But I mean, the point being is but it's not often you need that, right? I mean, 99. So people do this conflate, the eDiscovery and forensics. They conflate these topics, right? And they think it's all one click and everything else. So I've decided that it's really important to communicate to lawyers and to the courts that while there is a reasonable expectation to have to produce data, and I wrote this article, I think it pissed Sheriff Shinlin off, maybe not. Maybe I'm giving myself more importance than I so deserve, which my wife will tell you happens more often than not. But I wrote this article and I said the Zuby Lake opinion basically is encouraging private corporations never to upgrade their IT systems because the cost to get data out of a legacy IT system is exponentially more expensive than a company that has to comply with SOX for financial records. Because SOX has a requirement you have to get in 24. Like they're very granular, specific data times where you have to be able to produce data to the requesting party from the government under SOX. But in turn, that requires a company to basically upgrade their entire infrastructure to make data more accessible and easily accessed, which then in turn lowers the cost to get the information. Right. So remember, I wrote this in 2005. Okay. This isn't like we're like, I don't even know how many years later, many years later. Okay. So I published this article in 2005 and it's still true today. Like people like, we want all the metadata fields. I'm like, for what? And I'm a special master, right? And I believe, you know, I have this flying. I kind of believe quid pro quo or goose and gander with common sense, right? So there's always there's an imbalance of parties. There's European issues, right, and everything else. But you have to justify why you need things. Just because you want it, right? How does it actually fit into a litigation strategy? I tell lawyers that appear before me or when I'm doing consulting, I go, eDiscovery is to get you information. Your job is to litigate a case. My job is to get you the information so you can try your case. If you end up litigating the eDiscovery, something has gone seriously amok. And it should never really be the case. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times where corporations do require some additional pushing or guidance.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, like I can't, the number of times I have a hearing in a company. So returning back to the story, right? I have these companies appear before me and they're like, it's going to cost us $4 million to get the data out. I said, okay, maybe that's true. I go, why don't you get the guys internally that run those systems for me and have them appear before me? And I'm just going to ask them whatever questions I want. And you can assert privileges to the attorney-client privilege because I don't want them to disclose anything privileged, but I want to probe your statement about the cost, right? Because $4 million is a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money. I mean, well, maybe not for everybody, but for me, that's a lot of money. Okay, so
it's significant.
Yeah, I mean, so but we go and not every time, but there are a lot of times when they bring in these guys that are like experts in their system. They know, and I'm like, how long would it take for you to extract this data? They're like a half a day, 2 days, 3 days. And what's very apparent to me is that using a third party to extract the same data is exponentially more expensive because they don't know how the systems work. They don't know how the data works. They don't know how anything works. So you're paying someone who's hopefully smart enough to make it a little less money, but to basically figure all of that out, extract all the information when you have the internal resources. But then the problem is, how do you create a protocol and process that makes everybody comfortable? Right. And so like, these are the things we deal with. But, you know, I mean, I also I just finished building actually a really cool Web 3.0 chain of custody tool. I'm not trying to promote or sell it. We built it for ourselves. And then this is something because you build something doesn't mean people will buy it.
Buy it. No, for sure. Well, so I want to ask, you know, so many of these things are the same for the last 20 years, right?
Yeah, no question.
So what can we in the eDiscovery community, besides being aware, but what can we actually do to help move things along? Because there is so much retread, so much just, you know, the same stuff going over and over and over again, the same problems. And I mean, special masters, I talked to some people who are special masters and they're sick of it just because it's like the same thing over and over, just with a new set of faces. You know, what can we do to help push things forward and actually affect change within the legal discovery process?
So I think it's educate, empower, and accountability. I think if you like, I like being a special master, but you know, probably not all the lawyers love me because I believe in accountability. I believe in cost shifting. I believe in accountability. I believe that if you're not going to be accountable as the head litigation partner and understand how discovery works, and it turns out you get something wrong and that wastes substantial amounts of time and resources, you should pay the other side's fees and costs. Right. But there's a huge hesitation in the market to ask for fees and costs and to award them. And until you create a level of accountability right? If all of a sudden the managing partner or the partner that's head of litigation has to pay the other side's legal fees for a wasted 30v6 deposition that they didn't get right, that changes everything, right? If all of a sudden you have to go to your client and say, oh yeah, we have to pay the other side's legal fees for the deposition we took that wasn't actually necessary and nobody was actually prepared for, that would change the tenor of the conversation because that would impact the way people are actually practicing.
Yep.
It's not that people don't have the knowledge. It's that they don't want to apply the knowledge. Right, I don't think
they don't have the knowledge.
Well, okay, they well, it's not, they don't know. They don't know. So so the other piece of this puzzle is that you don't know. Like, I'll give you an example. I don't know anything really about snowboarding. I know a lot about skiing. Okay.
Okay.
Right, but I don't have a problem going to ask somebody that knows how to snowboard to teach me and show me how to snowboard and do that part. But all lawyers think, oh, I know how to litigate a case. I know how to file the briefs and motions. And they don't think, oh, how do I get the data that I actually need to litigate the case? And because they think they know how to litigate, they don't realize they don't know how to get the information to litigate. And then without recognizing they don't have that knowledge, they then get themselves in trouble, right? I mean, you're seeing more and more issues. Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, but until that shift in accountability happens, I mean, how can you affect change, right? If there, you know, it's a painful, slow process, right? And until you can actually, the bar itself is willing to hold the lawyers accountable for their failures and not let them be licensed or, you know, encourage that at that level, why would you learn? What is the functional incentive to learn when you're a lawyer?
40 states have passed some varying degree of a requirement for technical competence. Some of them are laughable in their lack of definition of what constitutes technical competence. But is that the first step?
Yeah, but then you got to enforce it. Okay, how many? So I heard these 40 states all the time. I'm like 40. Yeah, but how many people have been disbarred for being technically incompetent? The guy in Connecticut in the Alex case, that case, right? They literally, like, I don't know if you guys covered that or not, but like that was a train wreck of eDiscovery, unwanted disclosure by the lawyers, right? And I'm sure there's personal circumstances and lots of life things that would give me color and context probably to what actually played out or whatever. But the fact that like the technical incompetency is like has to rise to that level indicates to you how low the bar is set, right? I mean, until there's an actual like set in the bar exam that says, how does email, blah, 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 until there's actually at that granular level of accountability.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, but you act like to affect the change, right? How else can you ensure technical competency? How else can you effectuate something without some basic measure or metric to test against, right? Unless you disbar people, which we know that's rare. Look at Tom Gerard, like that takes a lot, right? I mean, so if that's the bar you're trying to hit against, that's, you know, so the first step is technical competency. The second step will be integrating some form of technical competency into the bar exam. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a need because of AI, not because of eDiscovery. I don't think eDiscovery is going to move the needle, but I do think privacy will. I think product liability will. I think that cybersecurity will, right? I think the run-of-the-mill vehicles, right? When you get in a car accident 10 years from now and you want to, who are you going to sue? You're going to sue the AI manufacturer, the car manufacturer, the person that repaired your car, right? All of a sudden, you're taking... Yeah, but you're taking a need to understand technology completely to the mainstream, right? When all of a sudden it enters in the mainstream, this need to know how just the fundamentals, then you'll see this shift, right? But there's no compelling need. I wish there was, but like, and I get people, and the problem with Sedona, right? And all these other, they're all self-fulfilling. Everybody at Sedona doesn't need to be at Sedona to be good at discovery. Like they may choose not to practice discovery in an appropriate manner, but they all sure wells know how it works and what's required and where to look. But that's like what, 10,000 of the like million plus change lawyers in the United States? Like, I mean, that's 1%.
Right, not even. Okay, you teach. Yes. So when you are teaching, how much of this are you, well, what are you teaching in general? What class
Well, you can ask my kids and they'll tell you nothing. No, but so I teach advanced computer forensics. So I
Okay.
teach forensics, like mobile, like
Right.
you know how many people like, oh, it's a Mac, it's easy. I'm like, dude, no, it's not how it works.
Now, are you
Like,
teaching this to law students or to
no,
computer
we
science
teach
students?
so we teach to graduate and undergraduate students at Harvard, right? And so that sometimes includes a law student, sometimes it includes practicing lawyers. Like it depends on, sometimes it includes CIOs of, like, we've had big CIOs, we've had a wide range of people. So that's one area I teach. Then I teach cybersecurity law, because an
Okay.
area that I actually do quite a bit in is around cybersecurity, sort of that intersection of, the law is very complicated around, the rules of engagement and cyber war and the law, and using, I wrote this article about using chaos theory and mathematics to better understand the application of international law to war, but that's not what we're here to talk about. And then I teach cybersecurity law, and then I also teach cryptocurrency, blockchain, and smart contracts.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's sort of an integrated teaching approach where it's hands-on. We just finished teaching crypto last semester, and it's and I'm teaching cybersecurity ethics this coming summer. But it's kind of hands-on, like, what is a token? How does it work? Evaluate the white paper. Or for forensics, like, what is the right protocol and process, right? A lot of people can click the buttons on the tools, but very few people understand how the tools work.
Right.
And that's a fundamental problem with eDiscovery too. If you want to know as a special master where I said, the thing that drives me bananas is that they click the tool and then they forget to, like, they're like, half the stuff doesn't load. And I'm like, well, did nobody bother to run a hash check? Or like, but they're like, well, we imported it. And I'm like, well, did anybody actually look?
Right.
Like, and they're like, no, we clicked the button.
They're not taught, they're just taught, right, exactly. Click the button and it goes through.
Like, God forbid you look at the log file. God forbid you actually, like, there were cases where I've heard where they collected the evidence and they just imported half of it.
Yeah. I will tell you that I won't mention who, but two of the major processing systems in eDiscovery for a long time did not have error reporting.
Except
I know.
Reports. Yeah.
I mean, even now their error reporting is great. Like,
at least they have it. At least they have something.
But how should that be the standard? How could that possibly be the standard? Like, you're talking about the processing of evidence to get into a court to then use in a litigation. How could you not have error processing? I'll give you an example. In our organization, I don't charge for the amount of data, right? So I can collect 2 terabytes, 5 terabytes, 3 terabytes, I don't care. And we'll process it all. But every case we do, we look at the law, and we do in forensics. I'm not even doing the eDiscovery. We look at the error logs, and then we QC it all, and then we run testing, because at the end of the day, that process, right, is imperative to make sure that you get what you're asking for. But they don't know. They click these buttons, and you're like, how is this possible that, and they're like, oh, well, we did it. My other thing is, oh, we had 3 million documents. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, but you forgot 300,000 of them. And the other thing that really irritates me is they're like, oh, we have 3 million documents. I'm like, oh, did you deconstruct the email? Oh, yeah. So each email on some of these processor becomes its own document, right? So then the signature, the GIF becomes its own document. The header could become its own document. The body is its own document, right? And so you're like, oh, who cares? Or they're like 3 million documents. I'm like, and they're like 20 million pages.
Right.
No, and then it's like 20 million pages, and you're like, oh, okay. How many of those were single images on a page, right? I mean, it's just astounding to me.
Just the 1 pixel in the upper left
yeah,
corner.
but that one you laugh, but that's like. And then they use that as a document in their file counts, and they think that that's like, that they're like, oh, well, we negotiated search terms, and this is what they returned. I'm like, did anybody QC it? Did anybody actually test it? Did anybody, and that's the other thing about eDiscovery. It's not about perfection. It's about process that's defensible, that will work. Nobody's perfect, right? Same thing with cybersecurity, right? Nobody's 100% secure. Nothing works 100% all the time, but it's like a Band-Aid. If you peel it off slowly, at least my children, they will scream. If you rip it off, they will scream, but only once and not for hours. And that's a big difference. And that's the same thing with eDiscovery and the vendors. And like, you know what I wish they would teach lawyers? I would wish they would teach them how to ask vendors the right questions. Because I think that would fix so many of the eDiscovery issues. Because I truly don't believe lawyers may be magnanimous and incompetent and somewhere in between, you know, all of those adjectives we can use to describe them, right? That's irrelevant, because every lawyer, if they're taught how to ask the right questions, can help ensure that the vendor is following the right process.
Yeah.
And but they don't. Instead, they I tell the lawyers, don't worry about how the tech works. Here are the questions you need to ask.
Right.
But that's not how they approach teaching eDiscovery, right? They talk about the law and all these things.
So if one of your kids was expressed interest in going into eDiscovery and forensics, would you tell them to do it?
I mean, for a career, forever kind of job, like forever, ever?
Ever.
I mean, they like it and they're passionate about it and they're inquisitive. Like, I love what I do, right? I mean, I do forensics on oil rigs. We do forensics on medical devices. Like, I'm hoping I get a case where I get to do forensics on chairlifts. Like, I mean, like, you know, there's lots of cool things to it, and you're always learning something new. And we're all, you know, I mean, you have to be willing to learn and try new things and fail and be able to be comfortable with that, right? And, you know, yeah, I mean, why not? If they like it. I mean, I don't know if it'll be like they'll make a fortune doing it, but as long as they love what they're doing and they do it in a respectful way, sure.
Well, we are close to time, so I'm going to move us into a couple of random questions.
Wait, one last thing. I do have a solution, Tom. You asked the question, how do I think eDiscovery can get fixed with the lawyers today?
Yeah.
I think the right answer is teach the lawyers how to ask the vendors the right questions.
Okay.
I think that may not fix all of it, but I think that'll get huge swaths of your problem stack fixed. And all you need to do is teach them and then ask the right questions. And then they have to be okay if they don't understand the answer to how, but you know, that's the thing.
Right,
I don't know.
Right.
I think that would fix it.
Yeah, but that's very hard because you're dealing with people who are experts in something and admitting that they're not an expert in something that they feel they should be. If you ask them, you know, something about how oxygen reproducer in the space station works, they know they don't know it. But here they feel like they should know it. So there's a hesitation to even admit that they don't and to ask that next question. So I think that's a hard problem to solve, but it has to be solved.
Yeah. I mean, if they don't ask it, they should get in trouble and then you fix it.
Well,
but I mean, I think you correct, at least just teaching new lawyers and accomplished lawyers how to ask the right questions of vendors. Like, do you error check? Like, to Rocky's point, do you actually QC your
QC.
law?
Yeah, just QC. Yeah.
You know, like, and then if they give you some answer, make sure you understand the answer. And then most important thing I tell people is have them prove it. Have them show it to you.
Yep.
Right? Take the hour and a half and have them show you the process.
Yep.
Right? You may not understand all the math. You may have no idea when they click the button what's really happening but at least you know that they loaded it, they click the button.
And the next time, each time you'll learn a little bit more. So
right. Yeah. So that's my answer, Tom. Sorry.
Cool.
Sorry, Rocky.
So okay, couple of very quick random questions. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Okay, this is a conversation that comes up a lot in my house. We would split it. I'd split it. I'd live in Park City, Utah for the winter. Now, with kids or without kids? This is without children.
Okay. So let's start without. Yep.
with kids is a whole different calculus. I would then do New York City in the fall. Okay. I would then do Tel Aviv in the spring. Okay. And then I would do Northern Europe in the summer. I mean, Northern Europe is my base, and then travel around. And then every like twice a year we would go to Asia and Australasia.
Okay, very cool. If you could add anyone to Mount Rushmore, who would it be?
I'd add a blank piece of rock.
Add a blank piece of rock as like a metaphor kind of thing, or
No, just one less thing to look at. Well, that
Nice.
and like everybody can look at it and see whoever they want.
Yeah, there you
right.
go.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
It's been another fundamental debate in many years.
In the Garrie family, yeah.
I mean, like, well, not of my immediate, of my with my siblings and stuff.
Okay.
I mean, early Star Wars and early and mid Star Trek.
Okay.
So I wouldn't take all of Star Wars. I would take early Star Wars for sure. Okay. Definitely. Like new Star Wars, kind of.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind.
The new TV shows are really good, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I have 2 kids. I haven't watched TV in like a while. So like, yeah.
You know, now you including the Mandalorian and all the cartoons too?
I'm saying the Mandalorian, Clone Wars, and Andor.
Yeah.
Come on, they're solid. So,
A lot of good stuff there.
Yep.
All right. Well, I haven't seen them. So I'm saying I would
Oh,
early
so you
Star Wars.
can't opine until you watch the Mando. I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
It is the way.
Fair enough. Based on my limited knowledge set, I would take early Star Wars and mid Star Trek.
Okay. And mid Star Trek is defined as like the 90s.
Yeah,
Anything after Shatner left.
Okay.
No comment. But yeah, something along those lines.
Okay. And last one from me. If you could learn one professional skill that you don't have now, what would it be?
Oh, there's so many things I want to learn. Surgery.
Surgery. Okay.
Ooh.
Interesting. So next time we talk to Daniel, it's going to be after he has his MD. And
I looked at that for a long time. I've actually.
I'm not surprised.
All I got to say is, as somebody who did his undergraduate work at Johns Hopkins, I don't trust anybody with a knife in their hands. I know what those guys were like.
I know, but just thinking. Yeah, well, I have several doctors in my family, but like they like. When you go in and you do it right, you like it's one of, I know they make money, but it more importantly, you're changing life like every day effect. That you may not be winning every day or like but like that to me is such a profound sense of like
making an impact on someone.
Yeah, but it's not just an individual, it's their family, it's their extended family.
Right.
It's everybody in that. I work
Finding a procedure that impacts all of the human rights, like right, like heart transplants, right?
Yeah, you have no idea, right?
Now you look at it. I have a brother-in-law who just went in and had his lungs replaced, both of them. I'm thinking these guys are getting to be like auto mechanics, right? Yeah, come on in. The doctor said, he said to the doctor, "This must be really hard." He said, "No, the really hard one's when we do the heart and both the lungs at the same time."
Of course.
Yeah, but think about that, like
no.
You're changing like everybody around. Like he's still here, he's breathing, he's enjoying life, his family. Like to me, it's such a huge
monumental.
Yeah,
monumental. When I was growing up, people were dying of polio. Right now, they're replacing lungs.
Yeah, that's great. You're like, and I think that would be an amazing experience.
Yep. Okay, Tom, all yours.
Okay, I got two quick questions and then our final question. My first one is, better skiing in Vermont or New Hampshire?
Oh, I like Mad River Glen. It's not even like, New Hampshire.
All right, I'm not talking.
Like depends for what. Like I don't like crowds and I like good snow.
I don't care. Snow. I hate skiing. I grew up in Vermont. Nobody who grows up in Vermont considers skiing to be a recreational opportunity. Snow is your enemy, right? so I could care less, right? Second question: Beatles or Stones?
Well, the Beatles.
Okay. No, I'm really not talking to you. Go to New Hampshire and ski and listen to the friggin' Beatles. I don't care.
Yeah, that'd be a good day.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. My my parents are from New Hampshire, so got a lot of family up there.
I mean, but Vermont's so crowded today. If there were no crowds, but I mean, it's too crowded.
Yeah, it's all New Yorkers.
I mean, I have no comment there. I mean, I like, as long as you love to ski, I'm not going to say you shouldn't go. But when you make the line an hour long and the price of the ticket $200 and the cost of the candy bar $10, it kind of is it like when you go to New Hampshire, you can pack your lunch, you can eat on the mountain, and you can be in and out, and the lift lines aren't going to run you like an hour and a half. So
no, and shortly after we got married, we went up to upstate Vermont, all the way up. I forget the name of the ski room. My wife was an avid skier, and she didn't like it. She thought it was, she grew up in Seattle, so she grew up skiing.
She did with me. She did Baker, Bachelor,
exactly, Bachelor. She got lifelong friends up there in Canada, and snow, powder. She didn't like the snow in New England.
Real snow.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, that was her comment. Okay, last question.
80 days a year.
Last question. We give this to everybody. If you could spend a day with anybody from our profession, living or dead, who would that person be, and what would you do?
Okay, so I would do with Rambam from back in the day, or Maimonides, and I would do Justice Brandeis, and I probably would go skiing, so I can talk to him on the chairlift ride on the way up. And over a meal, but also enjoy the outdoors and experience things.
There you go. Awesome.
Oh.
Sounds like a great day, except for the skiing part. but yeah, that's just me.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us. That was great. Look forward to.
Oh, wait, and I do have advice for people that want to do this. Don't be afraid of doing it.
There you go.
So many people, this is something people ask me all the time. How do you do it? You just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. Just go do it.
You got Coursera, you've got, I can't think, Udacity, there's tons. You just do it. If you want to do it, do it.
There you go. Yep. All right. Well, Daniel, thanks again. We had a wonderful time chatting. Hopefully see you maybe legal week in New York. You'll be up there trying to claim your birthright as the owner of the name. Well, the owner of the.
No, I still own it. I still own Legal Tech Group and Legal Tech Company. You know what I'll do is I'll put your picture on the website if I have time next week.
There you go. There you go. That'll help your cause. It'll scare them off, that's for sure. Rachi, as always, a great pleasure talking to you. We appreciate you taking the time, and look forward to seeing everybody. Next thing coming up at the end of March is Legal Week, right? That's the next big event.
That's the next big one. Yep.
All right. Well, I hope to see some of you all there, and if not, we'll see you next time on the eDiscovery channel. Thanks so much.
Thanks,